Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Janelle Riley from Variety. Before we're joined by our guest today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given over $6.5 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Giancarlo Esposito. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Janelle. Thank you for having me.
You are one of those actors who, whenever you show up in something, we know we're going to see at least one great performance. But I actually want to go back to the beginning, since this is an audience of SAG actors. How did you get your SAG card?
Oh, my goodness. I think I did Taft-Hartley to the max until I could no longer Taft-Hartley. They would Taft-Hartley me on a boat to Europe. I kept begging because at that time I was really kind of struggling. And I kind of remember that it was like finally you have to do this. I did a film as an extra called Fig Leaves Are Falling years ago, and I did The Landlord and all these films. And when I was finally able to piece together the bread to get my SAG card, I think it was somewhere just before Trading Places. So I always claim Trading Places as the movie that I actually had to join. And it was a film that I actually had one big, huge scene in. But as a SAG actor, I know that I always wanted to be a part of a union that would protect me, but could never afford to get in. And so when I finally did get in, I realized how important it was to be a part of that union. And so over the years, I've been asked to do independent films and go around my union and waive because it costs the producers money to do that. And I always say, I can't do that because they supported me when I was just starting. And they allowed me to push off my Taft-Hartley over and over and over again until I could really afford it. Because one job could give you that if it was one job that was a 3 or 4 day extra role or a speaking part. And then it was all worth it. Then I realized how important our union is.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I would say Trading Places too, because that's a fantastic movie. I would want that to be my first.
Yeah, me too.
I would actually love to start at the beginning because I know that both your parents were involved in the arts. I think that's fair to say. When did your love of performing begin?
I think it began when I was in the womb. When I was born in Copenhagen, Denmark. My mother was performing with Josephine Baker at a supper club act. She had gone to Europe on a Marian Anderson scholarship, a great opera singer of her day, had left a scholarship fund, and my mother and father met at La Scala in Milan. So I'd have to say it had to be around a time where I was really in my mother's belly. But I remember watching. I went to work very early after my mother and father were in the midst of a divorce, and I would do recording on the mic. And I worked for Ray Fowler at RKO. And we did all the voiceovers for commercials and films and all that. And so I really loved being on the mic. And finally I said, when can I be on screen? When can I do that? He said, that's not my department. But it trained all of my acting sensibilities, but I wanted more and to be able to do more. But at that time, I had to be someone else. It's the perfect acting story because it wasn't acting to me. I had to learn to be Hispanic to get some work. I had to learn I didn't have much of an accent. I spoke some Italian and different languages in our house growing up. But it was more of I started to develop a New York accent, and I knew that I couldn't have that either. So I just acted as if all these other people, and it was sort of acting out of my skin color to be able to get work, which was to me a way to learn how to act and be neutral and not be ethnic and be straightforward. And I think the mic started to teach me that.
And for the record, your ethnicity, you're Italian and African-American, correct?
Yeah, that's what I call myself. Italian, African-American. My mother had a very interesting nose, not a black nose, but an Indian nose. And I asked her about it when she was young, and it's that Choctaw Indian from Ohio that's in her as well. So I claim some Choctaw as well. I love the diversity of my background because it allowed me to think differently than if I was just American. I was just talking about this in regard to a show that I'm developing, and I really want to get the sense. The show, I aim for it to be about an everyman, because the everyman is so important in today's time. It's the everyman who is the essential worker, every man, every woman. It's the every man, every woman who's the nurse in the hospital, or even the doctors in a way, even though they're more specialized, who keep the machine running during this time of that all these things are happening. So I want to tell that story. And it's the everyman who can't pay his mortgage and the supplement package is running out, and who has 3 kids and has to work 2 jobs. So when I think about that, I think of that's how I thought of myself coming up. How am I able to take all of the challenges that I face to be non-ethnic? Of course, I've done 5 movies with Spike Lee and all that, so I don't claim non-ethnicity. I want an ethnicity that is that we're able to sort of enjoy, that reflects all of it. But unfortunately, the stereotypes that have been perpetuated in the past, unfortunately, there's still those walls are still being broken down. But it's happening faster and quicker and more than ever, because the everyman's journey, we've been reduced to being to even forcing ourselves to be to see it, at least, whether we want to see it clearly and approve or not. Because the people who during this pandemic who have a little more money and a little more access are a little better off. And so, and the people who don't all over the world are sick or dying or challenged with worrying about whether or not they should go back to work or not. So I like that particular story because it, especially for actors, it keeps you hungry. If you success early is a great thing, but it could make you lazy. And I think success late it could allow you to be bitter and not want it anymore. I think somewhere in the middle is a great place to be, when you realize it's not about any of the accolades or anything else. Because when you come from where I come, it's only about paying the rent. When you're an actor who's struggling in the beginning, it becomes only about paying the rent. And you realize that after a while, through that effort, and if you make the right choices, it becomes really about the love of what you do, and the rent doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Because you think you want to be in. I lived in Pat Plaza in New York for a while, and you think you want to be in, have a home and have a family and do all these things, and then all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, my whole life is a gypsy life. What does it matter? I put a cot in the back of the theater. You know what I mean? And so then I realized, your priorities shift, and all I care about now is the quality of the work.
Wow. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you started at a young age. I think I heard you were 10 when you made your Broadway debut.
I was 8.
Wow.
I was 7.5 when I went into rehearsals for Maggie Flynn, a musical with Jack Cassidy and Shirley Jones. Stephanie Mills was in it as well, who eventually became a wonderful singer. Irene Cara, another singer. We had a really wonderful cast. And, it taught me the theater taught me how to be a real thespian. That's what it does. It gives you a purpose and cultivates a craft. And it also cultivates a hunger, because you have to find your work. You go to cattle calls, you get backstage, I got variety. I would read all of these different papers to get information about where I could show my talent. So when you have that hunger and desire, you're always working on material, and that deepens your expression. And before you know it, after you read tons of radio copy and tons of auditions for voiceovers or even soap operas. I did a few soap operas when I was young. It was an extension of the theater just for the camera. And it allowed me a vantage point into what eventually became a big part of my life, which is television and, of course, film.
If you're on Broadway at age 8, and it wasn't just a one-off, because I know you also did Stephen Sondheim's Merrily We Roll Along, these were big productions. Did you know then that it was a career, or were you just having fun?
Well, I have done 13 Broadway musicals. And so by the time I got to Merrily, I knew it was a career. By the time I even got to Lost in the Stars, was an early play I did. That was really great with Brock Peters. But by the time I got to Merrily, I knew that I was on that trajectory. It was just a matter of making the choice as to whether I was just going to be a Broadway actor all my life, or developed a skill that allowed me to enter film and television because it's a different acting style that goes into that. And I made a decision early on that what I really loved was the dramatic part of what I do, and that required skill, like being able to shapeshift into a different character, being able to shapeshift between film and television, and do it well. And how could I take the skills I learned in the theater? Because in the theater, I'd go to the theater at 3:00 for a 7:30 half hour, just to be able to get in the space and feel the energy and start to feel my rhythm. Because that's a show that once the curtain goes up, it doesn't stop. You can't call a cut. So that kind of training for me was what I needed. I needed that discipline. And then I translated that into my work in television via how I develop the craft. What is my practice each time I come to a different character in a different role? How do I do that? And it changes and it shifts, but it's based on a kind of formula that's informed by my work on stage.
And, since you're so accomplished starting out, you made the choice to go to college. Did you train there?
College was fun. I think immediately of Brad Gromelski, who was a drama teacher, radio and television teacher, but who loved the theater, and college was his Broadway. So in a way I did train there, because we would get up and sing Broadway show tunes to each other, and we would formulate what plays we could do and how we could bring the class, not that I was a teacher, into what we were doing. He was very, very proud of me and very happy to have me as a partner in play. I remember the first time I heard the song, it's our little secret, little secret, little secret. He loved that song. He's passed on now, but it was a duet. And so it allowed me information about musicality and music plays I didn't know. And he wasn't a music teacher, but he was a historian, a theater buff. And so he taught through that because it was the way to teach. And so he got his hands on someone who actually had some experience, because I started when I was 7, 8, and I did 13 Broadway musicals. And by the time I was 17, 18, I was too old to be young and too young to be old, right? So I was in that zone where, what are they going to do with me? And so I decided to go to school to get a degree in radio and television communications, because I thought, if this fails, I need a backup. You always have to have a backup, and it should be a backup you love. So I had a radio show in school, and I loved cameras, right? So I remember I worked all the Iona basketball games in 1978 and 79 when the first Ikegami video cameras came out, and you pulled the cable into the New Rochelle Iona basketball game gym. And one camera was on the floor and one was way up on the bleachers. And they always put me on the floor, which is a challenge, because you had to zoom out and get the player as he dunked and then follow him all the way back down the court. It was that simple, but that gave me a sense of motion and movement. And I've always liked motion and movement. So it was a great synergy that occurred between me and the camera as an operator. So that plays into years later, finally directing and understanding lenses to a certain extent, but understanding what kind of motion and movement I'd like to see. And it also helped me because I think that the smart actors who intrinsically know and feel where the camera is, but are able to just not even look at it, or they feel it, and when it moves, they can counter. It's like another energy in the room. Those are the best actors and the best physically, right? Who just don't shut that down. That's something that's trying to record you, and there's a human being normally behind it. Although today we have new technology where our cameraman doesn't even need to be in the room. Mm-hmm. He can move the camera from down the hall on his monitor. So maybe that's less intrusive, but it can be more the rhythm and the energy that goes on in that dance, to me, is terribly important for an actor to understand.
So did you ever have any kind of formal classroom training, or has it been all sort of on the job learning?
It's a great question. Mostly on the job learning. I went to the Harlem School of the Arts for a semester and studied with the lovely and late Rosetta Lenoir to get a sense of drama. At the same place, I studied ballet for a season to get a sense of movement. And then the most formal training I had was at the Actors Institute years ago. It had to be 40 years ago. I did a summer seminar called The Mastery, and it was Dan Bausi and David Kagan, and they were the breakthrough Estian, acting teachers. Always had to be acting. There was a lot of new form thought about acting was through personal growth, because acting is confronting your worst demons and also your highest possible feelings about the world and the pain that's in between. And so if you don't have anything to relate to, I guess you have less of a full interior to tap on. So you have to create that story of the interior that the character's dictating to you to be able to tell the story that is essential for either the play or the film or the TV show that you're doing. But if you don't have that experience, what do? So the S teachers at that time, they had done EST, which was like the Be Your Best Self kind of mastery. So they transformed that into the mastery for actors. And so it was a lot of personal growth that went on in the room when you listened and were in with students that aligned with their fears, and you try to get them over their fears to get a performance out of them. Like example is, and that's partly why I became an acting teacher. I thought it was just such a great thing for human beings to confront the demons that they're carrying in the sack on their shoulder, let it go so you can have a fresh eyes to the world. You carry your resentments and your trauma with you your whole life, then that takes a lot of your attention. And so I'm realizing now, as I've had a couple of years of really beautiful opportunities on 5 different shows the year before last, 4 different shows this year, playing different characters who some of them may share some same traits, but I start all over each time and create a different character every single time. It's been very fulfilling, but I'm calling on the way and how to do it, the way I know to do it. And there's no right or wrong way. That's what I learned from teaching. I learned that from the mastery. You got to find your own way. Like, what is that? And it's play. It shouldn't be arduous. It should be interesting. It should be fun. It should be play.
I'm curious about, that time when you sort of made the transition to film and television, because for me, growing up in the 80s, you were such a huge part of my film going experience. You were in Taps and Cotton Club and Desperately Seeking Susan. You were on TV in Miami Vice. From the outside perspective, it seemed like you were working a lot. You seemed very successful. Was that the perception that you were having of yourself?
Oh, no, I always wanted to work more. I even feel like I'm just getting to the point where I'm hitting my stride and praying that my interest holds, every other day when I pick up all of my material for Saul that's a week or 2 weeks away from shooting and I'm already working on it. I feel like I'm in the theater because I'm working on a stage play. I don't learn my lines the day before. I learn the feeling and everything of it, but then I drill and drill and drill so that I have the ability to have it be fluid. Then, no, I wasn't getting enough work. I mean, the Miami Vices did make me feel good. Don called me finally for the heartbeat video that he did at the end of the show. I did 3 or 4 Vices. It gave me an opportunity to really work. But that's why I kept diversifying in a sense that I tried to learn all these different ways of applying my talent with an accent, Spanish accent, being a street tough. I did a bunch of NYPD Blues. I think that's when I developed the idea that if I just did everything I could in terms of the guest star world of television, I could reach critical mass and have all these characters in my trick bag. And so I don't think I've ever changed that. But then I couldn't be, I had to be exclusive because there was a thing called first position, second position. And that's how it worked. If you were in first position on a show, no one wanted to touch you and give you a guest spot for first position next week, even if you weren't on their schedule. They wanted first position that week and the studios wouldn't do that. So I thought to myself, that reminded me as I started to become a little bit more in demand for guest spots that I had to address that and I had to be the best I could be. And if I was really, really good, then they didn't care. They just wanted to fit me in wherever they could. They didn't care about first or second position. They were like, it's like someone who says to your manager, as my manager, lovely Josh Kesselman's been told, we see him. And Josh is like, what do you mean? Like studio heads, oh, we see how much he's working. We see he loves to work. And they love that because that means commitment. That means I'm going to keep my word. I ran into Eric Kripke in the Bottle Factory in Toronto. I was doing Jet. And I was having a great time with Carla Gugino and Sebastian Gutierrez, who directed and wrote a beautiful project. And I walk around the corner and there's Eric Kripke, who I work with on Revolution. And he was one of our writers, and I love Eric. And, he looked at me funny. We were talking, his whole team was there. And I said, I think I know what you're thinking. He crossed his arms. Like a director or writer would. And I said, I know what you're thinking. He said, if you know what I'm thinking, what am I thinking? Tell me. And he said, if you know what I'm thinking, would you? And I said, of course I would, Eric. I love you. Gave him a hug and walked away. And I turned him around. And I said, look, I'm doing 3 other shows, and I know how it goes. They were all cast and just starting to shoot. He was going to write me into the show. I said, but just listen to this. They're not going to be able to make a deal with me. You're going to have to go through my people. He's so professional. I know. And guess what? They're not going to make a deal. You won't be able to make a deal. So when that happens, either for schedule, time, or money, whatever it is, it's going to be all of the above. Then you just call me. You know what I mean? But I'm telling you now, I would love to do it. And that was it. And so with that, it all played out the way I described. He texted me and said, okay, we're at the end of our rope. They're at the end of their rope. So I went, I got you. No problem. You know what I mean? And I said, okay, so my people, I'm doing this gig, figure out the day. He put 4 episodes together and we were off and running. And that's how it's worked for the last 2 seasons, because they feel your intention, and that's really important for an actor to be very descriptive and clear about their intention in their work. And what actors miss or have missed, or I've missed in the past, I can just say me, qualify myself in that mix, is that it's a business. So the intentionality has to be also not only creative, because there's a time where I'm like, I'm an actor, I don't do that. That's not my, I just want to act. But, but it's also important for me now, and I understand it more than ever. I have a schedule, and that schedule is important to me because I've got to be in, San Francisco Friday shooting something, and in Albuquerque on Monday, and in Toronto on next Thursday, and there's a pandemic and I have to quarantine. Well, I can't do that. So they got to call, you got to call the producer and go, hey, I can come after 2 weeks. I'm done with Saul, then I can do this. But if they really want you to do it and they understand your integrity, commitment, and approach, they work with you. They tell business affairs, look, we really want this guy, and they work it out. And that's been my success. I mean, for me last year to do the year before last with Dear White People, The Boys, Mandalorian, Better Call Saul, and Godfather of Harlem. That's 5 shows, but everyone worked it out. And that's and I'm really grateful for that, thankful for that. But I think that comes from people really seeing who you are and what you want to do and how, and your passion for that kind of work.
Not just 5 shows, but 5 really good shows. I mean, most people feel lucky if they can get 1 in their career, and you have 5 in a year.
Yeah, I was so stunned this year at the Emmy announcement because I didn't know it was coming, and I don't think I ever have. I think once I've known that morning was going to come, and then my manager called with the whole team, and I was like, "Who?" I was half asleep. I got up. I was on my way to Pilates and wanted to go meditate. It's your whole PR team, and then I finally started to get it. Congratulations, again. And I didn't even. My daughters were ringing the phone, and one texted me and texted, "Did you know how many times you've been nominated?" I said, "I don't." And then she called me. She said, "Papa, this is the 5th time." Wow. But it struck me so beautifully this year because I thought it's so wonderful to be in a category with so many great actors, and that I've already won. Because to be nominated again, another year of a nomination is just a great honor. And I just cried because that I felt like I had won. And that's the feeling I want to maintain. It's wonderful to be acknowledged and have the hardware in your hand and all that. But now to me, it doesn't matter because it's the acknowledgement of my peers. All the folks in SAG-AFTRA, all of the folks in this Television Academy, all the folks in the Academy. I mean, those are all us. Who is that made of? That's made of your peers, people who are at the top of their game, many of them, and people who are the journeymen, who are also at the top of their game, really acknowledging and admiring where you've come in your game. And to me, I know what I've gone through as an actor, and I know why I'm still humble and really love it. It's that connection. That connection is everything to me. And it becomes more and more important the older and more mature I get.
This may be a silly question, but I always like to ask people about auditioning early on. And it just occurred to me, you probably don't audition now, do you? Do you remember the last time you auditioned?
You know, let me see. Yeah, it may have been Breaking Bad for Sharon. Sharon Bialy called me and said, "This kills me to say this, but Vince wants to see everybody. We want you to go on tape." And I don't know what to say. And yeah, I guess I'm more well known now than I was back then. And and she was so apologetic. She said, "But I guarantee you, you come in, you read, or I guarantee you that you're getting the job. It's not." And I was like, "Sharon, you know how this feels. I mean, guest spots are." And I said to myself, "Shut up." I think that was around the time I changed my attitude. And I went, "Of course, of course." See now, yeah, I had to audition for Far Cry. I had to go in and meet them. Different kind of audition, right? And be clear about, oh, wow, everyone wants Gus. I don't want to play Gus. I want to play somebody else. Well, he has some qualities of Gus. I don't want to repeat. I realize now it serves to tell them how I feel, and it allows me to work today, right? So we forget that. It allows me to discover, and that's kind of a risk you take. The Far Cry people, I had just met them. I knew they wanted me to do it, so I had to dress up. This is what actors do: get in my suit. I had to think about who this character was. I had to go in, and they wanted to tape me reading some pages. Not an audition at all, But you know what? If you're an actor and have done it for years, that's what I do. Mm-hmm. And so it was around the time of the Breaking Bad stuff. And so Far Cry, that was only 2 years ago. I do still put myself in a position where I'm anxious to audition, because I feel like, and the word afterwards, I say to the folks who are looking to investigate if I'm right for their show or whatever, thank you for allowing me to work today, because that's what I do. And it allowed me, I started flipping the whole idea of it. It allowed me to work at my craft today. If I hadn't had that audition, what am I working on? I'm sitting here reading Shakespeare or poetry. It's just like me working on Better Call Saul and all these shows that allow me material. You don't just go, oh yeah, got the role, go in and be Gus. No, you got to read, you got to talk, you got to walk, you got to think about it. That allows you to deepen your skill and your craft. And to me, that's what it's all about. So now all of my interviews, can you come in and meet with us? And sometimes it comes with the offer already being offered, which is a great thing. Sometimes it doesn't. And when they jump the gun before they give me the offer and have the interview, I know it's an audition. It's okay.
How you must have been a good auditioner from the start. I mean, you were working so much. Did you have any sort of tricks in the room to help you?
Well, when I did the Anybody Knows a musical many years ago, I was told I was understudy for 2 different roles, and I went on one night unexpectedly for a role I hadn't blocked. I had blocked 3 of the roles that I was understudying. The other one I did, but I went on, and they just told me where to go, the other actors. I knew all the songs. I didn't know all the lines, but I made it up. And that's when I realized Martha, who was the stage manager, came to me and said, wow, I just love how when you don't know it, you act as if. And when you don't know it, you just make it up. I said, well, that was the situation I was in tonight. I hope I didn't screw up the play so bad, the musical so badly. She said, no, it was great. That's what we needed. And we put you in an awful position. So I like to audition fully. And I believe that if my best auditions are learn the copy, I just could never go into an audition reading the lines. It's just not me, so I learn it. Even if I had to have it in my hands, I would know it. So because auditioning is not just talking, it's really listening to, usually you have a reader there or the casting person reads with you. I can remember early auditions with Bonnie Timmerman, who pulled out an audition for me that she had of me for Miami Vice from 25 years ago. And I was blown away. And I could see my style. I could see what I was going for. But I was raw and everything else. And I had the paper in my hand. And when I saw that, I went, ugh, but I never looked at it. It was just safety in case I needed it. You know what I mean? So it was lovely to look back at who I was then and what my intention was. And I looked at the scene and my intention was good. It all worked. I was threatening, which I had to be. So it allows you to step in and out of different colors, and then to imbibe, to stamp them, to register them. So you have that, you have this, can be extended and expounded upon. You feel what that emotion is. Because I feel like, you don't know unless you feel. That's why I say act from your experience. Because if you had, and you don't learn quite the same when someone tells you as to when you learn the lesson because you went through it. And then that allows a whole different understanding of what that lesson may be. And so when you have the experience as an actor, it becomes indelible. You realize, oh, acting is a physical action, and it's also listening and taking in the energy of your acting partner and reacting. That's how the spark happens, I believe.
I know there's been so many pivotal moments in your career because it's been such a lengthy and storied career, but I would have to pinpoint one of them is 1988 when you made your first movie with Spike Lee, starred in School Days as Dean Big Brother Almighty, one of the greatest names ever in cinema. Can you talk about sort of landing that role and first meeting Spike? And, did you have any idea you would go on to make 3 more amazing movies together?
Dean Big Brother Almighty. Well, I met Spike. I was speaking about him recently at a talk I gave yesterday or over the weekend. It's such a whirlwind about our relationship. And Spike came to see me in a play called Zooman and the Sun. It was my first drama, and I was really intent on really having it make a splash. And I learned so much from it. It was Zooman and the Sun at the Negro Ensemble Company. I won my very first Obie for that play, directed by Douglas Turner Ward, the late Douglas Turner Ward, God rest his soul. And Spike came to see that, and he wrangled his way backstage, and we talked for a long time. And I knew he had an understanding of film. He just graduated from Morehouse, all this stuff. And so he asked me to do a movie prior to School Days, The Messenger, about a bike messenger, a really an autobiographical film, basically about his life. And we never got a chance to make that, but we did get a chance to collaborate on School Days, and we were off and running for 5 films together, back to back. That was a wonderful experience because I was yearning to have a family, and Spike invited me to be a part of the family. He really respected my acting work and was blown away by the play he had seen me do. And so to be able to do School Days and learn about the world he had just graduated from, the world of fraternity, the world of an African-American community, was new to me. I was trying to blend into a world of musical comedy and actors and trying to allow myself to be malleable so I could speak as if I'm white or speak as if I'm Black or Spanish or whatever else, like get gigs and have that experience. Well, I entered a whole world that was like the world of fraternity and the world of Black community. And so I found it fascinating and wonderful and lovely. My mother had done Porgy and Bess. I had done many plays off Broadway that had all Black casts, but never a part of a film community of African Americans directed by such a very intense and written by and produced by a very intense young man who was looking to change the way we saw ourselves. And that was so important because to have the opportunity to see yourself and create that opportunity for yourself was really a blessing that Spike Lee has continued to bring and to train artisans, not only now who are African-American, but Asian and whites, anyone who has that kind of passion for film.
Mm. I mean, did you know you were onto something special when you made School Days and specifically Do the Right Thing, which is, remains, one of the greatest movies made, I would say, of all time.
School Days, we didn't know. We knew on both, and there are different stories surrounding both. I know when Spike shared with me the first original version of School Days, it had a lot more songs. It was a bigger musical. And I know somewhere inside Spike, he's an old Broadway hoofer. I know he likes to speak in metaphors and song. And I never knew that until School Days. And so that was chock full of songs back to back to back, with the story trying to fit in, and it was too long and too much and all that. And so it got cut down into a very specific kind of musical, but it dealt with the most, because it wanted to focus on what was most important for Spike, the difference between light skin and dark skin Blacks, which he had experienced in his experience in this all Black community of this all Black collegiate community. And so it was wonderful because it was a comment not only on how we try to fit into a different world socially, but it was also a comment on who we think we are and how we see ourselves. So I knew that film was going to be a hit because I felt like that African-American community was yearning for that message, but the music was also, that exemplified the message. And I think specifically about Madame Riri's beauty parlor, where you have the light skin and the dark skin sisters, and they go at each other in the beauty parlor through song. And I thought, wow, what a fantastic, what is a guy had a creative and wonderful brain. Do the Right Thing had a different feeling. Like I knew School Days was going to be something of a breakthrough because people didn't know what life was like on African American college. And all the light-skinned blacks who never went to a black college and went straight to, the Ivy League colleges, all white people who didn't know, they knew fraternities, but they didn't know what it was like in the African American world. I knew they were going to be interested in this movie. Do the Right Thing was different. That had a very deeply mystical, magical, spiritual feeling about it because we took over a whole block in Brooklyn, and we moved. Spike called an FOI, Prove Islam. Muslims cleaned the block. There was one family left. It was just us, like on a soundstage in the middle of this war zone in Brooklyn. And halfway through the movie, or even before, I think we all felt like there was something happening that was beyond us. There was something special. It was a hot summer. Spike had all these different ideas. His collaboration with Ernest Dickerson was wonderful in terms of visually moving the film around. We had a great cast: Oscar Davis, Ruben D, Martin Lawrence. It goes on. Lawrence didn't do that movie, but it was so powerful that halfway through we became channels for the message and for the material. Bill Nunn, and to be a channel for the material is where you want to be. Like that is. The opportunity to be truthful, honest, and tell the story without forcing it. And so, Do the Right Thing, I knew was going to blow up because, we had all this activism in New York. Al Sharpton was doing his thing, and Tawana Brawley was happening then. And so Spike, this was his political movie. Like it was a social film, but it was his socio-political statement, about our piece of ground and how come you got no brothers on the wall? You know what I mean? Like honoring our ground within someone else's ground, because it's the Italian ground too, but honoring each other's cultures. And so that was Spike's big statement in regard to that. And I think that movie just holds up even today. Mm-hmm. And it's just a great example of how movie magic can happen. Because believe me, Spike's talented. He cut the movie great. Barry Alexander Brown. He put music on the movie great. Fight the powerful social statements, and he directed and wrote it in a beautiful way. And it was just the right amount, from the way it starts to the way it ends. You know what I mean? Rosie Perez, those big boxing gloves. It's just like such an analogy for where we were then. You had to stand up. What he was saying was stand up. The message of School Days was wake up, right? Wake up. Right? See what's happening, wake up in the right way. The message of Do the Right Thing, in a way, was stand up. And so I love the way all that came about and how much of a surprise it was for the world, but no surprise to me that this young filmmaker was going to make a splash.
And I love that over 30 years later, you and Rosie Perez are both Emmy nominees in the same year.
Oh, wow. That's right. I do love that too. I've done a few things with Rosie. I did a film called Night on Earth with her as well, a Jim Jarmusch film, and I love him as a filmmaker as well. Really, really enjoyed over and over again working with Rosie. She's raw, different kind of raw intuition and talent that's become refined. She was raw in the beginning. Now she's more refined and has just a really wonderful craft to pull from. And we look forward to all of us. I do a show called The Boys. I play Stan Edgar, and Rosie's breaking out of just that pigeonholed ethnic role for women, and partly because, you can play into it or play out of it. And so for me, it's the same thing. You could play that ethnic Spanish person who's a little loud, a little brash, that plays into the stereotype. And then you can grow eventually to a role where you're playing someone who's not regarded for her ethnicity first. And that to me is important. My crowning moments of Stan Edgar, to talk Homelander down, to dress him down and tell him, it's okay, and be a father figure, but then to teach him about, the Nazi German scientist who created Vought, and I'm a black man saying this, so, it's interesting to be able to be in that journey of investigation, that it is, if you know your history, then maybe you're not going to repeat it in that way. But if you don't, it will be repeated. So Spike is a great mentor and friend, and I just respect him so much.
I was thinking actually, because I was watching The Usual Suspects the other day, and you've played a lot of lawmen and then a lot of people on the other side of the law, which really shows your range. But quite a few cops in your career. Why do you think you fit so well into those authoritative roles?
Well, I control the chaos. I mean, I walk into a room as a person, and I know where all the exits are, all the entrances. Maybe I'm a little hyper vigilant, and I know I take in the whole room and know where everybody is. So that is being aware of your surroundings, number one. And I did play law enforcement people. They're a little hyper vigilant and a little authoritarian. And so I hate authority. So why not play an authoritarian sometimes, or someone who can read? I do more of this: read a person's body language, understand exactly what they're thinking. Maybe in reaction to a look I gave them, maybe in reaction to just catch them looking at me a certain way. I'm very good at reading people, and you have to be good at reading people as an actor. So to me, or at least I do. So to me, I think I play law enforcement and stern guys, and even villains, because I can tell someone with Gus very gracefully, would you like a refill? Is everything to your satisfaction? And just smile and be affable, or be the guy who looks at Lyle and says, the fryer is not clean. Do you want me to show you how to do it? People get afraid of people who are very demonstrative and clear. They get afraid of people who look at them a certain way and for all intents and purposes, undress them emotionally, like completely undress them to get uncomfortable. And we're at that point. We spend so much time looking at our phones and getting information as our best friend, taking pictures of ourselves, that when someone grabs your attention and won't let it go, they won't let your attention go. You can't pull away because they're looking at you, or the depth of you, or looking through you and feeling all of who you are. Well, that's scary. It's uncomfortable. And so if you can slow the tape down, slow the camera down, not be nervous, being in touch with your breath and not being nervous and not being afraid, and when they call action, everyone just starts going. I realize why they call action. Take a breath. I look. I don't just start. I go, oh, that's great. That allows me space. They've been, can bring me an inky, bring me that, blah, 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 touching you, all this shit. And then they call action, and you hear, right? You're getting, I'm feeling all of that energy. When I just go like that, chill, I call my own action. You know what I mean? And that's controlling the chaos, right? And understanding that is a better way for me to start, right? It's better for me to leave space and start when I want. Because what are they going to do? Cut? No, they want my performance. And if they tell me they want me to take a fast action or whatever, but normally no one ever balks at it because I'm honoring myself within the process of honoring the director, the writer, and all those other people by honoring my process and giving myself space.
Was there a time that you learned that, or is it just something you picked up over years?
Well, I realized I want to honor the playwright's word. So I work with the Atlantic Theater Company when I do a play there or anywhere else. I don't want to change a word. I don't want to assume I'm smarter than the playwright. I want to say the playwright's words because the intention of the writer is the most important thing. I think Breaking Bad really taught me how to get calm in the space of me, because I used in my yoga practice to help me learn and refresh my breathing. Allow myself to just sit and rest and settle. I used my observation of, a director named Ken Kwapis when I'm directing television, who Ken used to always go, okay, roll sound, blah, 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 blah. Let's begin. Wow, how gentle and wonderful is that? Because not every scene is action, Let's begin, or start when you wish, right? It's a different feeling into it. But on Breaking Bad, it was really how I really developed this new style of relaxation that I use specifically to create a single character. And you know what I mean? And then I realized, this pertains to a lot of my work, because the intention is to be ready, to be calm, to be out of my ego, not to feel forced, not to be nervous. then you take your own. I love the directors who say, take your own start. And they wait for you. It's good.
I remember being really unnerved when I'm still unnerved by Gus Fring, but when you started on Breaking Bad, it was, you were so quiet, like you commanded our attention. And, for better or worse, I think I associate you a lot with Bugging Out from Do the Right Thing, which could not be further from Gus. That's someone who is in your face and, both physically and emotionally. And it really caught me off guard.
Well, people, when I'm doing so many shows that people often feel like they know me, and certainly when I'm quieter and more threatening, and a lot of people don't know that I smile and I'm really kind of fun and lighthearted a lot of the time. And so when you get into that, I understand why actors become these certain characters they play, and they carry them with them throughout their days, because it gives them a certain feeling of acknowledgement, and it gives them a certain feeling of power. And when I start to smile in public, or I'm a little lighter than normal, or than what someone has seen me at, they then feel like they can talk to me. They then feel like, they go, oh wow, you're the picture, can we talk? Hey, you like baseball, blah 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 blah, right? But if I have a different demeanor, I put people off. Only people who are courageous enough talk to me, because But so in the welcoming joy of my universe as me, the real me, I don't like to withhold that, but people then put that on me. If they come to me, they immediately think I'm Gus. Well, I play 500 characters besides Gus, right? You know what I mean? So, but that's the one that appeals to them. So I get that game, and I get that acknowledgement, and I can play into it or not, or I can show them who I really am. And a lot of times people go, "Oh, wow, you're such a nice guy." they're weirded out by it,
Oh, that's hilarious. What do people want to talk to you about most right now? Is it Mandalorian? Is it still Gus Fring? Or, every once in a while does someone bring up, something maybe more obscure that is kind of fun to talk about?
Well, it is mostly now. It's a tie all the way around. It's 3 shows. It's Mandalorian, which is of course really hot now, and I get asked more questions about that than mostly anything. But it's The Boys. People ask me quite a bit about The Boys as well. But I would say, and Better Call Saul, because I know it's a 6th and last season, and it's certainly Gus is still, it's really big for people. People now come to me and they want me to sign something, and they want me to sign both Gus and Moff Gideon, because they just feel like those are the 2 badasses of all time on television. Yeah, so that's really pretty cool.
Did you have any idea when you auditioned for Breaking Bad? Because Gus Fring, the first season he was on, we really didn't know where it was going. Did you know it was going to become not only such an epic character, but, would carry on to this other show?
Well, I only expected to do Breaking Bad. I didn't know it would be this epic character, because I just wanted to feel my obligation to bring him to life. But I knew when they offered me a contract that that's what they were going for. And I insisted on talking to Vince Gilligan, because I wanted it to be something different than I had ever done. This started as a guest spot, which I really didn't want to do, because I had done so many. And I thought, until you say no, you're not going to change that, and I'm happy I did agree to do it, and feel like I'm happy to have returned in Better Call Saul. I felt like I was done with this character, and what else can I do with him? Because I know that, you need to have a mystery about him and know him a little less than having the full storyline be about him. It's not even about that. It's about wondering who this guy is, unpeeling the orange and the layers of this complicated character. So you don't want to know everything about him at all. So I knew that. So my challenge was to make him younger and more vulnerable, and being in a different headspace, being that it happens before Breaking Bad, and still to keep you captivated and have you understand that he's building his empire then. And I thought if I could do that successfully, that would be a different Gus than you knew in Breaking Bad. So that was the challenge. But this Better Call Saul, I don't think the expectation was for it ever to be as good as Breaking Bad from the audience, but people like it even more because it's more intimate, and it's really good, and they perfected their writing. such a wonderful performance by Bob Odenkirk, and certainly a stellar performance by Ray Seahorn. So, yeah, you get a chance to see actors really doing their thing. Like when I watch Peaky Blinders and see, Helen on that, and like wonderful acting, and Cillian, Murphy. You're seeing a family that is seamless together and pretty fantastic. And so that's a learning. I watched The Father, and I watched that movie. I mean, Sir Anthony has just channeled, one, two, three, maybe 4 or 5 different characters in that film, and channeled his whole life. And it's just so stellar in that. And Hopkins is just a genius, because you're uneasy for him, you're afraid of him, you're sad for him, all these emotions that are spurred by his performance. So, and that was play, right? So, and that's what he probably did for many years. And he went home to do the play, and then made the play a movie, which feels like a movie, not like a play, which Florian, who directed that and wrote it, adapted it from his own piece, I think is brilliant. But those are the kinds of experiences you want. It's the full circle experiences.
And of course, we have to talk about your role on The Mandalorian, not only because I want to know everything, but because you received your 5th Emmy nomination for playing Moff Gideon. The whole first season was shot even before it aired. So did you have any trouble, keeping Baby Yoda a secret? Did you, you must be good at keeping secrets at this point. I mean, you're on Better Call Saul.
Yeah, you get kind of good at it. No, it wasn't hard to keep it a secret. I think not many of us saw that child until Jon Favreau decided he wanted to show us, because there was a lot of figuring out what the child would be, practical, a doll, a CGI, all these things. And when they finally came out of practical that had the kind of eye movement and physical communication that Grogu eventually had, it was kind of brilliant. So you just kept the secret. I do know that at the beginning they shot all my episodes together, which was really great because I had to go to another show. And I before I walked out to the van, I had to cover myself in a cape, and I'm like, I already have a cape. They put another cape on me. I was a double cape dude to get from the studio at Manhattan Beach to the huge containers that were stacked up to fend off the drones and people in high places trying to shoot over them. And the stormtroopers who came, they came on a bus, didn't know, they thought they were going to a photo shoot for something. They had no idea they were coming to back Moff Gideon up in Star Wars. So that was really exciting, that to have that kind of energy behind it. So you really didn't want anyone to spoil that. And so it was really tight security. But the world of Star Wars is a world of technology that's different. And so for me, it's learning how to, as I did with Far Cry, learning how to be in a volume. This is in Star Wars, the volume was the volume of all volumes. Like it's it was the maestro volume room where the walls could move and the ceiling turns, and it can make you sick from being in there. There's 50 computers and people upstairs and downstairs computing how to change the color of the ground, the sky, the walls, the ship. And you're in this room alone, like I'm 40 feet in the air on top of my TIE fighter looking for the people who shot me down, the smoke coming up from behind me and all that. I mean, it's just an amazing experience when you're on a ship that's built. It's a practical, you're inside of it, it's all windows. And everything outside can move as if you're going through a galaxy of space. That's pretty special. That's pretty special preparation technology. And it's a route into another world, which is what we want as actors. It's the next step in the world of creation. And it's so specific. So to be in that situation where you're having some David Filoni, the old genius who learned it from Lucas, and Lucas coming to visit, and Jon Favreau, the master writer, actor, who understands the mythological journey of the child and Mando, and gets what that throws back to and how it relates to our world right now. Yeah, you're in a world of really people who are at the top of their game, who are stellar, who are using all their powers to allow the story to live and breathe, but the visuals to be the visuals that take you right into the storybook, like when you open it. That's what Jon's known for, and it's really more than an honor to be a part of this production.
Well, again, it's such an amazing career. There's so much I could talk to you about. I want to thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your artistry and your craft with your fellow artists. And best of luck this year.
Thank you so much. I love what I do. And it's one thing I would say to any actor or actress: persevere, because you're supposed to do this and you have a desire and you have a talent. All you can do is persevere and have your joy come from the material and the interaction and the experience of acting. Thanks so much for having me.